Okay, right off the monitors, our big story today. Vice President Kamala Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, they are running mates racing to take the White House. In just hours, the pair will rally voters in Philadelphia. So let's go live right now to Philadelphia and CBS News correspondent Nancy Cordes. Nancy, Walz has a lot of experience as a legislator, also as an executive. Is that dual skill set likely what pushed Harris to choose him?
It definitely made him stand out in the field of finalists. The fact that he served for 6 years as a governor, so he has executive experience, but 12 years in Congress. So he has legislative experience as well, which will be key if Kamala Harris wins in November and wants to get her policies and her platform enacted. So yes, he stood out for that reason, but also I'm told by sources close to this election process because he and Kamala just hit it off. I'm told that they had a great rapport right from the very start. And they also liked the fact that he is a plain-spoken but effective communicator on the issues that they care about. They think that he can appeal in Midwestern battleground states like Wisconsin and Michigan, and they think that he can take the fight to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance.
Speaking of the fight, he's credited for saying the word weird as it relates to the Trump and Vance ticket. How do you think he will bring energy, and what kind of energy do you think he'll bring to the debate stage when he squares off against J.D. Vance?
Well, he's known as a happy warrior. I think that comes through in a lot of his appearances on television. There's this term you always hear, Minnesota nice. He kind of embodies that. Already today, we're hearing from Democrats across the spectrum, from Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, all the way to more moderate lawmakers like Joe Manchin, saying that he's the right pick to bring this party together. So they think that he's going to do a great job. He is likely to want to debate. And just a short time ago, J.D. Vance on stage here in Philadelphia kind of went on the offense. He argued that Walz is another San Francisco-style liberal like Kamala Harris. I think you'll hear a lot more of that. But he also said that he does want to debate Governor Walz after the Democratic National Convention. That's been an open question, but it now sounds like that's more likely to go forward.
Nancy Cordes, CBS News Chief White House Correspondent, thank you so much. We look forward to your reports. We know that this will be a big-time dinner-time conversation. You know, moments after the announcement, Governor Walz posted on X, quote, "It is the honor of a lifetime to join Kamala Harris in this campaign." He says he's all in. Vice President Harris showing us the politics of what's possible. It reminds me, he goes on to say, a little bit of the first day of school. He's a former teacher, by the way. So what do we know about Governor Walz? Well, he's been on the job for 6 years, a seasoned politician and a servant in the Army National Guard. CBS correspondent Caroline Cummings streaming with us live from downtown Minneapolis. All right, Caroline, you've been covering him for years. How are broadly people reacting there in Minnesota to the news?
Well, it really depends on who you ask. So Minnesota Democrats are absolutely thrilled. He has gotten buy-in from progressives and more moderate Democrats during his tenure as governor here in Minnesota. Like you said, 6 years. He won re-election 2 years ago by 6 percentage points here. And so they are overjoyed because they see this as a way to showcase what Minnesota Democrats have done under his tenure as governor. They took back total control of the state capitol just 2 years ago, and in that time, Democrats have passed significant progressive priorities. We're talking about codifying abortion rights, climate issues. We're talking about gun restrictions, universal background checks, and a red flag law. These are things that Democrats have wanted to pass for years. And with the power of Governor Walz in the governor's mansion and Democrats in total control of both chambers, they've been able to do that. Now, for Minnesota Republicans, you know, they characterize Governor Walz as extreme, and that his addition to this ticket just makes this ticket more extreme. They've been sharply critical of how he has handled certain issues in Minnesota, namely those protests that turned into riots in wake of George Floyd's killing, and also to his handling of COVID and reaction there. That's still an issue that's top of mind for Minnesota Republicans. So while Democrats are thrilled, Minnesota Republicans say he's just more of the same for the Democrats at the national level.
What I thought was fascinating, you know, when we look at what women are talking about in this election cycle, of course, a woman's right to choose. And abortion access and reproductive freedom, something that has really touched his life in a personal way. He and his wife understood became parents through IVF.
Yeah, that's right. So he has been pretty candid about his experience of how he conceived both of his children with his wife, Gwen. They were both conceived through IVF, and this really kind of came to a head, of course, at the national level in wake of that Alabama Supreme Court ruling. And so he has shared that personal story with Minnesotans, now with national viewers, and also, too, to your point about, abortion being a key issue for Democrats and some independents at the national level. Minnesota moved swiftly to pass into law codifying abortion rights. We already have a Supreme Court decision here that protects that right, but Democrats, when they had total control, they wasted no time and said, we need to put this in statute. So the governor, I think that's just illustrative of how Governor Walz will try to leverage that record, the legislative record under his tenure as governor, when he is making the case to voters nationally about getting things done. I was struck by Kamala Harris in her statement to supporters in that text message about him. She said he's a, quote, battle-tested leader with a track record of helping Minnesota families. That is the way Governor Walz has tried to define himself here in Minnesota, and as he's made the foray into kind of the national political arena, if you will, as the chair of the Democratic Governors Association, and some of the cable news hits that he was making on behalf of the Harris campaign before he was ultimately chosen to be her running mate. And so it strikes me as a way that, he will try to distinguish himself from Senator J.D. Vance in any sort of debate or head-to-head matchup on what their records are and what they bring to their respective tickets.
Well, Caroline, part of the power of CBS News 24/7 and all of our operations is the fact that we have reporters not only nationally but locally, reporters who've been in the room with him for years, to see that and be able to convey that to our audience. We appreciate your report today. Thank you. So the Trump campaign responded by attacking Walz. They are trying to tie him to liberal policy. They say he's too liberal for the United States, quote, from proposing his own carbon-free agenda to suggesting stricter emission standards for gas-powered cars and embracing policies to allow convicted felons to vote. Walz is obsessed with spreading California's dangerously liberal agenda far and wide. Went on to say, if Walz won't tell the voters the truth, we will. Just like Kamala Harris, Tim Walz is dangerously liberal, extremist, and the Harris-Walz California dream is every American's nightmare, close quote from Trump's press secretary. Well, you can expect to hear much of the same in Pennsylvania today from the Trump campaign. Trump and Vance in Philly today, and so are Harris and Walz for their debut on the stage. Harris's event starts in just a few hours in North Philly, and just 5 miles away in South Philly, J.D. Vance with a rally of his own. In fact, we have an opportunity to listen to what candidate Vance had to say to voters about Kamala Harris and her record. Listen.
I'm not going to be able to introduce everybody I've spoken to just this morning and early this afternoon, but you've got people who have lost loved ones just in the last few weeks to gun violence because we won't lock up violent criminals in this country anymore, thanks to the policies of Kamala Harris. You've got children who have been orphaned, who have been bouncing around foster homes because Kamala Harris's policies allow this terrible fentanyl into our country that orphan these poor kids. And you've got parents who have lost loved ones, who have lost children, because we keep on allowing the Mexican drug cartels to turn our country into a drug trafficking zone. It is normal people who suffer when Kamala Harris refuses to do her job, and it is normal people who stand to benefit the most when we re-elect Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. And that's what we're going to do, right? That's exactly what we're going to do.
All right, J.D. Vance in Philly just a moment ago. He will meet up with Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, on the debate stage for that vice presidential debate. We'll be watching.